which is more difficult, the selection process for Special Forces or climbing Everest twice?
I'd have to say climbing Everest. Selection, 6 months SAS selection just seems to, it's drawn out over 6 months, right? And when you start, you're already a seasoned soldier. Like for me, I've done 1 tour of Iraq and 2 tours of Afghanistan. So you almost get to that stage where you want to prove yourself as a soldier. And I was, 24 years old, like full of testosterone. So like you go on selection with a bunch of other lads, and you're all, you've got this unified kind of cause that you're all going for at the same time. And I actually enjoyed selection for that reason. Because you meet, you end up all you start with maybe 150, 170 people. After the first 3 weeks, you kind of down to 50. And then after the next 6 weeks, you kind of down to maybe 20, 25 people. And these 20, 25 people have been through absolute shit. So you end up forming this like super tight bond where you're all really close and all really cliquey. And then you get to the end of selection after that 6 months, you get given your stable belt and your beret, and you get like a picture took next to the clock tower. You shake everyone's hand, and then you disappear into whatever regiment and squadrons that you go to. And then the next day, you kind of big boys rules into the mix.
Thrown into the lion's den.
Yeah, and I remember turning up day one, and like I was 24, like it's quite a young age to pass selection, and like the rest of the guys in my troop were all kind of, I mean, some of them were touching 40 years old. So as a 24-year-old turning up into this SAS troop with a load of 40-year-olds, even like the guy who came in 2 years before me, he was like, 2-3 years ahead of me. And like they're all like big guys, like big kind of men with like grey hair and stuff, and
big hands, massive hands.
Like, we had Billy was one of our senior sergeants at the time, and he was like a ex kind of football hooligan from London, and just covered in like skull tattoos and like flames up his arm and stuff.
Very welcoming.
Turns like, yeah, we actually went to Norway on our first exercise, and I ended up spending the whole 6 weeks living in a tent with him. So we got on quite well.
Very cozy after a while, yeah.
Yeah, as it turns out, he was the nicest guy there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and how does that relate to Everest then?
Yeah, so like Everest is like quite a big misconception for some people, because a lot of people think that because of the amount of people that go up and the caliber of people that go up, it's an easy thing to do. And coming from someone who's done a lot of difficult things in their life, Everest is by no means an easy feat. It just seems to attract people who can afford it, because it comes with a very high price tag. So it kind of attracts a certain caliber of people. And you do end up with a lot of dross on the mountain, which doesn't give it a very good reputation. But Everest is more, it's 6 weeks of living at altitude. So if you think like altitude just basically takes away energy from you. So if you stand up and walk 10 meters at sea level, it's fine, right? You don't think about it. But if you're at, 6,000-7,000 meters in the sky and you stand up and walk 10 meters, you're taking a couple of steps, stopping, breathing, taking a couple of steps, stopping, breathing. So like everything that you deemed easy at sea level is magnified in difficulty the further up you go, to the point of on your summit push, when, if you think of your summit push, it's quite, just to give a picture of kind of the severity of it. You do like you get up to base camp, you do an acclimatization, which takes 5 days or 6 days. You come back down, you rest at base camp, which is at 5,600 meters. And then you kind of sit there and look at the weather windows. And you always get one weather window to summit, which is clear skies, minimal winds. You sometimes get 2 weather windows, and you rarely get 3. So it's this balance of looking at all your weather systems and speaking to like people around the camps and finding out what's going on. Because like you've invested all this time, right? You've invested like the last 3 weeks of living at altitude, eating shit food, shitting into a hole in the ground every morning.
A frozen hole in the ground.
It's like clockwork every morning, and your only entertainment is the game of cards that you play at night in the tent. And by this time you're sick of lunch and meat and rice. So you invested all this energy and time into making the right decision and getting to getting high up and summiting in the right weather window. Because if you don't, that's it. You only get one shot at summiting. And you kind of set off at Camp 3 on your summit push. So you'll leave Camp 3, which is 7,000 meters, and there's 4 camps till summit. So you go Camp 3, 7,000 meters, leave there at 5 a.m. on oxygen. You climb up to Camp 4, arrive at Camp 4, say 4 p.m. So that's a full day to get there. Camp 4 is 8,000 meters. So you rest there in a tent for, 6 hours. You try and get some sleep. You get some hot water on. You cook some food. And then you leave that night at 8 p.m. to summit for first light. So, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning. And then you've got all that day to come all the way back down to Camp 2, which you get to Camp 2 at, say, like I got there about 9 p.m. So
it's a 15-hour day at ridiculous altitude.
Yeah. So you start 5 a.m., it's like 2 days basically, just constantly with no sleep, minimal water. At that altitude, your body doesn't work the same, so you don't digest food. So I was literally living off like the little energy sachets that like cyclists and triathletes and that use, which obviously then, I ended up with that just all over my hands, just like sticky, and it just leaks out into your pocket. So every time you put your hand in your pocket, your hand gets stuck. You're not drinking as much water just because you're constantly needing to move. And kind of beyond Camp 4 up to the summit, it's your body's kind of that drained and tired and exhausted. It's simply just that one foot in front of the other, that slow kind of monotonous, like tap, tap, tap. And then you just see everyone doing it. Everyone kind of puts their arm, like their elbows on the legs, and like, because you're on like a steep hill, and just gives it like couple of puffs of breath and just composes themselves before they set off again. And then you get to the top, and then coming down's even worse because it's steep ground, and then you've got this mass of people that are coming down at the same time. So you're trying to work your way through all these people for like the next 17. So you summit at 6 a.m. I'm no good at maths. Summit at 6 a.m. Get back down for 10 p.m. So what's that? 14 hours of walking downhill where your toes are just hitting the front of your boots for 14 hours to the point you start walking sideways, and then you change to the other side, and then you start walking backwards. Yeah. You just like I've been exhausted and tired and like fatigued and so many times in like my military career, but like you're never that fatigued and exhausted that you are on Everest.
It seems like a big part of that is the camaraderie that you had in the support structure from when you were doing Special Forces selection. I guess as well, like if you're in thin air and it's really cold and you're on a thin ridge, it's like, first off, you're spread out. Second, you've got to save your breath to be able to focus on the few bodily functions that your physiology is still able to do. Whereas, as you said, during your special forces, you're really able, you've got this sort of unity that binds you all together and makes maybe the suffering a little bit less solo.
Yeah, a little bit. I think, for a start, you're at sea level, so that makes things way easier. I guess when you're at sea level and you're doing the things that you're doing in the special forces, you always know where the end is, and the end's usually quite comfortable. So say you're deploying an operation that is anything from, 10 hours, 12 hours on a night raid, or you go out for a week and live in a building and put an OP in, or whatever it is. And you always know at the end of that, you take enough food, you take enough water, you're warm, you've taken enough, sleeping equipment or enough jackets and warm clothing that you're going to be semi-comfortable, right? There might be a little bit of hardship. You might be walking in with some weight and some kit. You do the job, you extract or whatever it is. But at the end of that week, actually, unless the job or mission changes, you're going to come back to base or wherever it is that you live. Whether you're in the UK, you come back, you're probably, having beers with the boys at the weekend or whatever. Or if you're overseas, you're coming back to a camp, you're de-kitting, you're going for steak and eggs in the morning, you're going to get back in the gym. Whereas like on Everest, it's like you set off on that summit window and that rotation on that summit window is 7 days. So you leave base camp. you leave base camp with a rucksack, and you come back in 7 days with that same rucksack. And you're not coming back to steak and eggs and beers with the boys and a warm shower. You're literally, you come back to a hot water, hot bucket of water and a little bit of leftover like shampoo that you took into
a slightly bigger hole in the ground to have a poop in.
Yeah. Well, everyone's just been like filling it in whilst you've been gone, so it's like overflowing.
Oh no! Please make it stop.
It's not like that hotel room in Dubai, I tell you.
It is lovely out here.